All right, today I am here with Nick, a.k.a. Grassblower, out in New Brunswick. How are you doing today, Nick?
I'm doing well.
Good. Glad to have you on the channel. I'm excited to finally meet you, make it all the way out here.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
No problem. What is your glass handle? Is there any specific meaning behind Grassblower?
My name is Nick, and my glass handle is Grassblower. I actually got that name from an elderly neighbor that I grew up near, and he was sort of from the hippie era, and we were there having tea one time, and he got a phone call, and he answered the phone, and he was like, "Oh, I'm just hanging out with these grass blowers." "Oh man, I mean, glass blowers. I'm hanging out with these glass blowers. But they blow grass too, man. Like, it's cool, man. It's right awesome." And me and my wife Heather just looked at each other, and we were just like,
"That's the name.
That is pretty good."
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's where that came from.
That's an awesome story, man. Where are you originally from?
I grew up near Sussex in New Brunswick.
Yeah, and that's where you're located now?
We're currently located, yeah, where I grew up.
Nice. What are some of your hobbies outside of glassblowing?
I really like to canoe and hike and go backcountry camping. Just things in nature I really enjoy to do.
Sure.
Yeah, I like the country lifestyle.
What was your introduction to cannabis?
I had smoked it a few times in high school, but not very seriously. When I started taking it more seriously when I was in university.
Yeah.
And I had some friends that were into smoking, and they liked different flavors, and I was really influenced by them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what led me into glassblowing, was smoking pipes and smoking bongs, and just curious about how they were built and how you get the colors in them and things like that.
For sure.
Which is what I found fascinating.
Yeah. What year was it when you started blowing glass?
The first time I blew glass was 2011.
2011?
Yeah. And it was soft glass gathered out of a furnace, like the Italians do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was pretty well hooked right from day one. I knew nothing about it. I literally just signed up for this course and went into it completely open, like an open book. Like, I just had no preconceived conceptions. I didn't know how it worked. I just did it and tried it, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
I couldn't recommend it more. Like, it's a great feeling about glass.
How did you get into glassblowing? So were you introduced to some heady pipes or something like that when you were?
Actually, no. I before I started blowing glass, I had zero experience with it. I'd never seen anybody do it. I had never even barely watched YouTube videos, because there wasn't even very many of those at the time.
Yeah.
There was a few, but they were not very good quality, and so I really had no way to learn anything, and I just decided to go to a school in Ontario for 4 months at Halbert School of the Arts. My wife Heather actually really convinced me to just jump in and try it, even though I didn't know anything about it, because I just thought it seemed interesting.
Yeah.
And so that program was mostly soft glass related, like the old Italian style.
Yeah.
And in that, I got an introduction to borosilicate working with the torch. And I knew pretty much from the moment I melted something that was the type of glass working that I preferred and that I wanted to work with. So yeah, after that I was influenced heavily by a friend, and then self-taught a lot as well.
That's awesome. Where did, so you say you're self-taught a lot, where did you start learning to use the torch and stuff like that? Did you build your own studio or something?
Yeah, so when I first got an introduction at that school to flame working, I bought a torch shortly after. And then I moved back to New Brunswick for the summer, and my friend Leroy, who he's not very well known, he doesn't really use the internet. He's an old school type blower from the days of Fish and Grateful Dead shows and stuff. And he mostly just does it as a hobby, and he was really nice and decided to set up his workstation in my place that we had.
Yeah.
And so I got to use some of his gear, and he let me watch him make pieces, and he was made very elaborate stuff and worked very slow and was very meticulous. So it was really good to see this high professional point of view as well as like the introduction and the basic stuff I got at school.
Yeah.
So it was good to see the two dichotomies of
Yeah.
it. And yeah, so after that it was all practice for me. I just had to practice. I didn't even watch stuff, I just figured things out as I was curious about how they worked.
That's awesome. So were you always artistic, or did that kind of come when you started blowing glass?
No, I would say I was not always artistic. I did always really like to work with my hands. I really enjoyed making things with my hands. Yeah, just doing things.
Yeah.
But I never really thought of myself as making art per se. I feel it's more about like the craftsmanship and like the
Functionality.
technique and like of making the glass properly and stuff that really intrigues me.
For sure.
I guess the building and stuff.
Yeah. So now that Instagram and like YouTube are more of a thing, who are some artists that inspire you, or some of your favorite artists?
Some of the guys that really inspire me are people who are super technical, like, and that's beyond like anything I can even do. One person comes to mind is Kevin Murray. He does a lot of drawing, stringer drawings with really hard to use colors and very, very detailed, and they're really incredible. And I really like the work that Buck does and Banjo and stuff. And those guys really are pushing the bounds on the construction of like larger pieces, and like I really appreciate that like technical ability. Lace Face is another one. He's doing some really nice big technical work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite piece that you've ever made?
I wouldn't say I have a single favorite piece, but there are definitely some that stand out. I made a recycler recently that was like 88 sections or 89 sections in combo together, and it was a pretty nice looking piece that I was pretty stoked about.
Nice. What's it like to build your own studio and kind of maintain that?
It's expensive.
Yeah.
Gear costs a lot, tools cost a lot, materials cost a lot, and a lot of times you're wasting a lot of that stuff when you first start out, so you're just like burning money and not getting anything to show from it. As far as like, we own this building and we built it from scratch, and it was, you know, it's a small building, but it was still a challenge. It had to be, someone had to pay for it. And, you know, I really would love more space, but that involves doing another major build.
Yeah.
So it's all just takes time, really. Like, this has been a progression of almost a decade of putting time and money in slowly but surely to acquire everything. Like, it doesn't all come at once. So.
Yeah, for sure. How long did it take, would you say, for you to become a competent glassblower? Like, good enough for you to be proud of enough to sell your work in the shops?
I started selling my work probably before I maybe should have.
Yeah.
Mostly in person to people at music festivals and things like that. And I really remember for quite at least 3 years being really frustrated all the time because I couldn't quite make what I was imagining, because I just didn't have like the hand skills to do it. And I always found that really frustrating. It was always just like, really like, oh, I can't wait for the day when my hands just do it and I can just be like, oh, I want it to look like this, and then all of a sudden it's like boom. And then one day all of a sudden, I don't know how many years in it was, it had to be at least maybe 3 to 5 year range when I really realized one day, I was like, holy crap, like I'm just doing it. Like, I thought of a minor change and just made it, and it was like just super smooth and flowing. And yeah, but it takes a lot of devotion, and that was like 5 years of hard work, full time, before I could really like just make what I was thinking about.
For sure. What's your favorite thing about creating glass or working with the glass?
All of it.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I love the fire. I love the flow, the slow flow of the glass rotating. I love the way it flows when it's hot, it moves. I like the feel of the heat. I like the intensity, you know what I mean? It's just, everything about it is really cool. Like, it's fun figuring out the chemistry of colors and how those work and making them work for you. And it's fun figuring out how to make the tools do what they're supposed to, and it's just like, every aspect of it is just really interesting and really fun.
Definitely. And now, what's the most challenging thing about glassblowing, in your opinion?
Everything.
The favorite
It's
thing
all
is
hard.
everything. Challenging thing is everything.
Yeah, it's all hard. For me personally, what took me the longest to really perfect, and I would still say actually I haven't perfected, but the thing that I found really challenging to learn was to make perfect ground joints. And it was also because I was very particular about them and was like trying to get them to be really exact, and it's a very challenging thing to do, especially with colors when you're starting from rods. So those were really difficult. Doing ring seals, like 3-way seals through tubes and stuff, was definitely a lot of trial and a lot of error.
Yeah.
To figure out. But once you figure out the mechanics of how those techniques work, it's very satisfying.
For sure. So what would you recommend to people just starting out or people just getting onto the torch?
Get used to making mistakes and having things blow up. Things mess up just because you don't have or other people don't have the fundamental, like the very fundamental things of like putting handles on properly and centered, and like, so that's where a lot of their problems come from, and you just have to get used to things breaking, having a thick skin about it, and you need to figure out why it broke and figure out how you can like fix that issue instead of just doing it over and over and over again until you quit, because it's really frustrating. And just go slow when you're buying your tools and buying your gear. Like start simple, get the basic stuff, a set of tweezers, a little paddle, a torch, and get the gas flowing, you know what I mean? And you can add in tools. Once you get comfortable and know your tools really well and really feel like you need another tool to do a certain job that you want to do, then buy that tool, and you'll appreciate every tool you buy that way a lot more.
Yeah,
just slowly. You don't need to get it all at once, just one step at a time.
Yeah. So you mentioned when you first started selling your glass, it was kind of at concerts and just the people you know. How has social media and Instagram kind of affected your sales and your technique as a salesman, maybe?
It's definitely helped broaden, especially Instagram's helped broaden my audience out of the local scene, like in the Atlantic, Canada area. When I first started, I didn't have Instagram. I didn't even know what it was. I barely even used Facebook. Yeah, Instagram has really changed it a lot. Like, it really connects you to collectors, and really you get a broad viewership on a lot of pieces. And like, it's also very competitive too, so it really drives people to keep trying to make good work and post good work, and to really get people excited about it. And so it's like this good melting pot where, you know, people keep continually pushing themselves because we see each other pushing ourselves as well. So it's just like kind of this rebound effect of it, like bouncing back at you and making you try harder. Try to, you know, stay on top.
That's awesome, dude. How important were shops to the scene before Instagram to you?
They were definitely a big part of it. Like for me personally in Atlantic, Canada, not very many shops carried local stuff or even Canadian stuff or American stuff because they just didn't know about it. So when I first was coming up, like we were the first people around kind of like trying to sell handmade stuff, and so it took a bit of learning for some of the local shops with us, and now like shops are the biggest aspect of like who is purchasing our work. I'd say at least 70 to 80% of it goes to a shop before it goes to a person. And they all keep me busy, the ones that keep reordering, and they're good for dealing with all the clients and stuff, because you can get sunk into answering DMs on Instagram all day if you're trying to peddle every single thing you make. So I'm happy to let the stores do a bit of that for me.
For sure. What are some steps or things do you think that can be done to maybe make the glassblowing scene a little bit bigger out here?
I think it would be beneficial for the general public to know a little bit more about the difference between something that's been imported from a factory overseas and something that's been hand created in a small home studio type setting. And like a lot of people don't realize that the clear glass from imported pieces maybe isn't always the same quality as the clear glass we use. And like they think clear glass is clear glass, when in reality the stuff from China and Indian stuff can be really weak and have low tolerance for breakage and stuff.
Definitely.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that. They just see the price difference, and that's like the only thing they really think about.
Yeah.
I think more people are learning about it, and that's great. And we just have to keep talking about it. And, like,
For sure.
telling people that there is a difference between this clear and that clear, and like, you know, you're gonna get what you pay for and stuff. And, like you can only get certain colors.
Yeah.
Whereas like we have a much broader selection of American-made colors that are displayed.
How would you describe your signature theme?
My signature style for the last few years has been a lot of cone-shaped pieces and designs of varying layouts, I guess. I've been really into doing really clean, sharp shaping and really smooth, clean wall weights, which is like the thickness of the walls, trying not to have like waves and ripples in it and stuff.
Yeah.
I've just been, really focused on being very particular about perfecting that sort of super clean, scientific type of shaping.
For sure.
But yeah, that's this year and that last year and the year before. And, you know, I'm sure as I perfect things, I'll change and start trying other things.
Yeah, for sure. How did you kind of develop that style, or how did you find yourself into that?
I just always really had this thing about triangles, so I don't even know where it came from. But my motto was always triangles are the best shape.
Yeah.
I think my favorite number is 3, and they're 3-sided and 3-cornered, and you can change them in a multitude of different shapes and ways that you can't do with a square and a circle, because once you take them out of that thing, they're no longer a square and a circle. Whereas a triangle is just like has an infinite variety of shapes and sizes available. So I just translated like that into a 3-dimensional object, which ended up being a conical shape.
Yeah.
And just kind of played with that. I kind of like the way they balance, and like it's challenging to turn a cylinder into a cone shape and keep the wall weights even and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just been, I don't know, it's a really strong shape. I feel like it's a strong looking rig that's well balanced. And I just thought it was worth exploring.
Definitely. What are you thinking about in the future as a glassblower?
I'm always just trying to progress and get better at my technique. Like, I just want to be the best at blowing glass that I can be, and not becoming content with how good I am right now. Like, I just want to get better at all sorts of different techniques. There's some I've dabbled with, some I've spent more time with, and like, I just want to be like as good, as perfect as I can be on those techniques, and like just do them well. Not just like figure them out and then kind of do them, but I just don't want to do things well.
Have you taken or given any lessons to any other glassblowers?
Yes, I have. I taught Peacock Glass at first.
Yeah.
She kind of apprenticed with me a bit, helped me do some production work. And then after that, she kind of taught her own things, and she learned her own techniques after we got the basics down.
Yeah.
And I've also taught a handful of people in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. Just the really fundamental stuff. I usually stick to really fundamental, basic stuff, because being a good glassblower really relies on a proper foundation. Because if you don't have a foundation, you go on to steps that you shouldn't have done until
100%.
that step was finished, and you end up losing the piece. So yeah, I've taught a couple people. There are some that have their own studio and they're working. There's one person who does it full time that I taught, and a few other people who are trying to, figure it out. And it's great to see the scene growing around here.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. All right, well, that's all the questions I have for today. Thanks a lot, Nick, for joining me. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot, dude. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks, dude.